Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elise for those of you who are new. Today I am going to be showing you a rainbow stencil ink blending card. This is using new stencils just released from Waffle Flower Crafts. This is the first time that they're releasing stencils, and the stencils that they are releasing are really unique and really well thought out. Here is the project that we are going to make today. Now let's jump into it. So I've got my Waffle Flower media mat out and my stencil, and then I've got a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. Now these stencils, all of the stencils that they released have markings for A2 size cards. Now the Bristol Smooth cardstock that I buy comes in a 9 by 12 inch size, and so when I cut it down to be a quarter of a sheet, it ends up being just a little bit smaller or larger than A2, I mean. So it ends up being 4.5 by 6. I've got a bunch of Distress Oxide inks here, and I'm just going in with my foam blenders and just randomly picking spots to color in. Now I'm going to make sure that none of these are directly next to each other, so I don't want two pinks next to each other. I'm trying to spread out my colors here a little bit. And I could have masked all of these off, but I didn't. It was just easier in my mind to do this. By the way, this portion of the video is sped up just to double time so that we're not here watching me ink blend forever. So I'm just going to go in and use all of these colors. So picked raspberry, candied apple, carved pumpkin, squeezed lemonade, mowed lawn, broken china, and wilted violet are the Distress Oxide ink colors that I'm using. I do think it'd be really handy for this stencil or for stencils like this. If you have any of those ink blending tools, the brushes that are the smaller brush heads, I only have ones that are like the standard size. That might be helpful to get into some of these tighter little spaces. Also, during this video, I'm going to start answering questions from my 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So part of that giveaway, I asked you to ask me questions. Just whatever you wanted to ask me, but today I wanted to go through some of the ones to kind of get to know me a little bit better. And so the first question comes from Fran. She is in Florida and she wanted to know where I live. And I currently live in Fort Worth, Texas. So my husband and I went to college here in Fort Worth. And so I've lived here for just over 10 years actually. And so we went to college here, and then that's how we met. And we stayed here. So that is where I currently live. Okay, gonna peel off that stencil. Also, I use purple tape to tape that stencil down to my cardstock here. I'm going to move on to some stamping. So I've got my mini Misty here. I've got a piece of Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound Solar White. And I'm going to be using some Copic friendly ink. This is the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. And all of these images come from the Little Artists stamp set. I thought when I saw this Inky Spots stencil, I knew that it had to go with the Little Artists. I love these little mice. I think this is such a cute stamp set. It's one of my favorites to color. I've used it many, many times, so I just knew that these two things, they had to go together. So now that I have got these all stamped out, I can go ahead and do my Copic coloring. This is the bulk of the colors that I am going to be using in today's card. If I use another color, I try to put the caps on the side. So just quickly, I am not the world's best Copic colorer. What I do is I go from darkest to lightest. So on these mice, you'll see I'm using W4, W2, and then W0. I'm not super fancy with choosing colors or blending combinations. I just do what I think looks best and, hope that the recipient really doesn't notice if there's little coloring mistakes. The nice thing I think with Copic markers is that they lend for an easy blend, meaning I feel like they're kind of foolproof so long as you're using color combinations that kind of go together. And there's a ton of resources out there for, like, if you look on Pinterest, even for like favorite Copic color combinations, you'll find a lot of good combos there. Okay, so back to some questions. Milan asked me, she lives in Australia, and she said, if you had a chance to travel any place in the world, where would you go? And it's so funny. I feel like COVID times, right? Like, I would love to do nothing more than travel. So I will say my husband and I absolutely love traveling to Germany and Austria specifically. Our favorite city probably in the world is Salzburg, Austria. We just love it. And we went there before we got married. We went there on our honeymoon, and we went there for our first anniversary as well. So these days we talk a lot about how much we wish we could go to Austria, but can't because of COVID, obviously. But someplace that I would travel to that I've never been to, I would love to go to Australia. I think that would be such a unique trip. My husband and I have also talked about maybe going to Japan, and we think that would be a really fun trip as well. So both of those are very, very, very long plane rides from Texas or from the States. So, it'd be a while. Okay, I got a question. I'm guessing that this person is international. They asked me if I liked Indian food. And to be honest, I have not had a lot of Indian food. And in Fort Worth, Texas, I don't have a lot of opportunities to eat Indian food. So I don't really know if I like it. They also asked me what my favorite makeup was, which I thought was funny, probably because in that video I mentioned that I actually wore makeup for that video. And again, COVID times, I haven't really been wearing a lot of makeup these days. My favorite makeup brands, I really love Kosas and Ilia. Both of those are like clean, more like natural makeup brands. And I try to gravitate towards more clean and natural beauty products. Okay. Candy asked me, what food and beverage would you choose if you could only eat that for the rest of your life? I'm also guessing that if I choose that, it doesn't matter the calorie content in these. It would probably be for food, a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese, and for a beverage, like outside of water, of course, original Coke, like not Diet Coke, regular old plain old Coca-Cola. So obviously, if those are the two things that I ate, and only the two things that I would eat, I would be the size of a house, but I would be a very, very happy house. Barbara asked me a good question, which was, how have I been coping with the pandemic? So I talk about this some. I worked from home before the pandemic. So on some level for me, there has been less of a transition because I was working from home before. But at the same time, like the only people that my husband and I see are both sets of our parents. So it's just as easier that way. And they both live here. So if we keep it to that kind of a lower population, that those are really the only people that we see socially. And we're pretty much the only people that they also see socially. So we feel like that's probably our safest bet. But I think, obviously my husband and I talk a lot about that we miss our friends. We wish that we could see our friends and people that we knew. I haven't seen my best friend in person since February, and she lives a mile away. So it's just wild, but at the same time, like what we feel like we need to do to protect ourselves and to protect our parents is just that, is for us all to be safe and to see less people. So outside of that though, I feel like we've been coping pretty well. Thankfully, where we live, curbside grocery pickup is very popular, and so we easily just do curbside grocery pickup. You know, DoorDash and Grubhub and things like that have made food delivery really, really easy. So we still feel like we're supporting our favorite restaurants. We just get things delivered these days. So that's a little bit about that. I am getting to kind of the end of my coloring here. So you can see I'm just trying to choose rainbow colors as I go through because my background is so colorful. I do want these mice to be able to stand out on the background. And so I am just making sure that I'm covering all of the colors of the rainbow and getting everything in there. By the way, I ended up with a lot of questions from those, but this is exactly why I asked for questions, so that during voiceovers in which I'm just coloring and would, you know, outside of this have nothing else to talk about, it kind of gives me a little bit something to talk about. So hopefully you learned a little bit more about me today. But yeah, so I hope that, you know, if you're new and you don't know a lot about me, that maybe you learned something new. Okay, just final coloring here. That little paint palette is perfect because there's 8 colors. So if you do pink and teal, you get perfect rainbow. I'm sure they designed it like that, but every single time it makes me so happy. So once I am done with all of my coloring, I ran all of those matching dyes through my die cutting machine. And also I took some of the nested circle dies and ran those through with vellum. So my little mice have a place to rest instead of just floating. I wanted them to have something to sit on, but I didn't want to take away from the background or cover it up. So vellum to the rescue. I've been reaching a lot for vellum these days. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment just straight onto my card panel. This is a sentiment from the Fresh Rainbow Sentiments. I'm just going to use that same black ink because it's already out on my dining room table. So just using that to stamp down, and I really need to re-ink this ink pad. So I ended up having to stamp it twice just to get a really black impression. Now I can move on to some card assembly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange my little mice here and then take the little accessories and do some matching up and see where I want the little accessories to go. I ended up coloring too many, but that's fine. What I do when I color too many items for a card or a scene is I'll just take those die cuts and slip them into the stamp storage pocket. And so the next time I go to make a card with that set, I don't have to color as many images because they're already there colored. So that's just a tip. Or if you're stamping out a bunch of images for a card, stamp out a few extra and slide those die cuts into the stamp storage pocket so that you can use them again later. What I'm going to do is use some little, these are those thin foam squares, and pop up the mice. Just add a little bit of dimension to this card. So I'm going to pop up the mice onto their little individual vellum circles. By the way, everything that I am using today is linked down below. So if you're looking for any of these products, they are linked down below. And then I'm just going to use some liquid glue and glue the little accessories into their hands so that it looks like they are holding them. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that process for all 3 of the mice. And then in order to hide the glue with the vellum, I'm just going to place liquid glue onto where the mouse is glued on to the vellum. And I'm going to repeat that for all 3 of these little mice. Then from here, we're really just on to final stages of getting the card together, using that same liquid glue on my card base, which is that same Nina 110 pound. Just tape that shut with some purple tape temporarily so that everything will glue down flat. And then I'm just going to line this up, and that completes the card for today. I hope that you enjoyed watching me make this card. I highly recommend checking out the new stencil release from Waffle Flower. Some really, really cool stencils, and I really enjoyed making projects with them this month. If you liked this video, be sure that you subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. And on the screen are 2 more videos for you to watch if you want to keep watching more from me, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much.